singing in a song, seeing past the trees into the stars, so very far away from me. Oh, come round the pyre, oh, come round the pyre. Got to see the idle fire, got to see the idle fire, and the unknown sounds, and the unknown sounds, and the unknown sounds. We have so much to discuss. E.T.'s done got in touch with you. Can you hear the rings of Saturn calling out to you? And what are you gonna do when the rings of Saturn call out? When the rings of Saturn call out for you? Come round the pirate dusk, we must get in touch with our inner scene, singing in a song, seen past the trees into the stars, so very far away from me. Oh, come round the pyre, got to see the idle fire, into the unknown sounds, into the unknown sounds. The echoes seem very cool, down to the edge of the universal path. Oh, come round the pyre with me. We'll talk of tomorrows to see. Unknown sounds, unknown sounds. Can you hear them calling out to you? Can you hear the sounds of Saturn calling out to you? What are you gonna do when the rings of Saturn call out to you? The unknown sounds, the unknown sounds. You hear the sounds of Saturn call out to you. Hi, welcome to the Literature Cafe Global. I am Brian Burchette, host. This is also one of our hosts, Patrick Michael. It's going to be a great show tonight. David will be hosting this event. We have a lot of great performers for you. And now, to begin the show, I give you music by Mr. Patrick Michael. Thank you, Patrick. And on with the show, and welcome to the Literature Cafe Global.
Hi, my name is David Koci. This is the Literature Cafe Global, usually hosted by Brian Burchette. He had to go to work at the drop of the hat tonight, so he's not able to be with us tonight. But I will be posting some video along with the YouTube show that we are gonna create out of this show of some things that he has done, and then his friend and also co-host Patrick Michael has done as far as Patrick Michael's singer-songwriter music that he puts together that you may have seen before on our prior shows. Tonight we have a very awesome group of people from all over the place. I'm super thrilled. This is truly becoming a global show, and I love that about it. We've got Pamela Hurst, Christopher T. George, Gabriel Brock, Frank D'Onofrio, Francesca Kirkpatrick, Phillip Henry Christopher, also known as Philadelphia Phil, and Lori Thompson and Barbara Schaefer. Most of us are going to be reading tonight. Some of us are supporters of our friends. So, anyways, I'm going to start out with Pamela Hurst. I'm so thrilled that she's here. It's been a few months since I've seen you here, and I'm just super excited that you're a part of it today. So, Pam, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, I'm originally from Nashville, and I was the female part of the Beat Licks, which was Beat Lick Joe Spear, who Joe was very prominent in establishing a lot of the poetry in Nashville. He had community access cable shows. He held open mics. He published, and he left quite a legend, but he's not here anymore. And the first thing I'm going to read is from Joe's book. When we found out Joe spent 20 years writing this book, and when we found out he was dying of pancreatic cancer, he lived long enough to hold the first copy in his hands. He died within 2 days of holding this book. Oh, wow. So I'll start out with 2 pieces, and then I can come back. But while my friends are here, I want to be sure. I think these are my strongest pieces. So we're going to read from Backpack Trekker, Beat Lick Joe. This is Trek 135, and this is remembering his grandmother. My grandma, Juanita Tafoya, never drove a car. She used a horse and buggy until the encroachment of paved roads made it impossible or illegal to use a horse. When the grid pattern of fences and roads was established, it precluded even going for a walk unless it was along the side of the road. The practice of pedestrianism was past. She sold her horse and used her wagon as a flower bed. Her children drove her to church on Sunday and to the farmer's market. She always maintained a large garden, so she sold and bartered vegetables. She irrigated and aerated the rows of green chili. Then she weeded and kneaded flour tortillas. Her main job was providing nourishment for 11 children and 3 grandchildren born to a daughter who died of pneumonia at an early age. She never bought a television, so she had no need of English, and her children did not speak English until they were enrolled in public school, where Spanish was not allowed. In good weather, mi abuelita spent the day out of doors. When she rested from hoeing her rows, she sat in the shade. She exchanged babysitting services for cords of pine and oak for her wood stove. A hatchet was her tool to prepare kindling from dead branches collected on her property. With her crusted right hand, she split wood to fit into the fire trough of the stove. With a hot stove, she prepared 7 tortillas at a time, flipping them over with her fingers. As she was reluctant to hook up electricity, she stayed outdoors most nights until it was time to go to bed. Her last act of the day was to say her rosary. She said the prayers aloud, lying on her back with her head on a pillow, was her desire to die peacefully in her sleep. The death finally came, the end finally came after her children were married, in the military, or moved out. It came one fall, when the harvest was in and the fruit trees had delivered their bounty. It came at the close of a full day of hard work. It was a perfect day, with colors changing and the nights turning cool. They found her in the morning, lying on her back, a smile on her face, and a rosary in her hand.
All right.
Okay, and this one, ready for now, is "We aren't sending Mexico our finest." She smelled of cats, cigarettes, and alcohol. I knew trouble was coming when she bought a half pint of vodka at 10 a.m. for our morning hike. I thought we could mix it with some juice when we stopped for lunch, she explained. I called it quits with her after 2 weeks. Yet another soused tirade. I told her she drank too much. She finished it off with me by breaking her apartment window and throwing all the glass in my backyard. Now, her neighbor across the way was another piece of work. A long-term resident, he considered everyone else in the complex a temporary intrusion of his privacy. He communicated by yelling out his window, "Turn off that porch light. Quit playing that guitar." His fondness for drink was evident not only by his surly demeanor, but the alcoholic blush which encircled his upper torso, making him a true redneck. He bragged about his success as a stockbroker and all the expensive restaurants he frequented. When the power goes out, he really gets upset. "I'm a very rich man. There are people who need to know where I am at all times." There was another guy who shared my balcony, a writer who fancied himself the next Pulitzer Prize winner. He was paying for sex with a 16-year-old yard boy and a young Oaxacan masseuse. He left in the afternoons. He sat on the balcony to smoke a cigar while splashing me with his splayed out legs. He left our complex after a short stay in the hospital. He fell off of the rooftop, and no one ever did find out what he was doing up there. Now, across from him, that was the crazy gringa who destroyed all the electrical sockets in her apartment to prevent surveillance. And she left with the expensive cable box for her own protection. Now, my favorite was the attractive married couple, Southerners like me, and we were a big hit in the restaurants when we all started talking in our twangs. We were all three newspaper folks. She was a photographer and he was an editor for the Times-Picayune. They were entertaining until mezcal followed their third bottle of wine. She would curl her tiny little feet up under her and become silent as a statue of Buddha. But he kept talking, slurring his words into incoherence until he lost all his dignity. Now, over the years, my dear landlords have suffered the increase of argumentative, entitled, demanding gringo tenants that have created a genuine decline in the serenity of our little oasis in Oaxaca. Now, we all saw Trump incorrectly declaring, "When Mexico sends people up here, they aren't sending their best. They are sending rapists, drug dealers, and I assume some of them are good people." Well, I'm here to tell you that we are not sending Mexico our finest either. The end. Thank you. And
Those,
I'll stop here. I can do more later, but
sure. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I like to rotate and it kind of helps keep it moving, or
Well, I don't want to keep my
background.
friends here too long. They're
Oh,
important women. They might have other things to do.
well, I tell you what you did was really well, and I would like I would like for y'all to stick around if you like to and check out the other artists as well. They're pretty interesting people, so if you want to. Um, but yes, that was really awesome. The so those were Beatlik's writings out of his book, correct?
Say it again. The beat licks.
Writings out of his book, is that right?
Oh yeah, that's from Joe's book.
God, that's
The
phenomenal.
first one, the second one is from all my neighbors when I first moved into this complex.
Okay. That
All
makes
those are true
wow.
stories.
Ah.
That's amazing. I love that's kind of like when I moved to Nashville. I lived in Cookville for a while, then I came back to Nashville, and I lived in what is it? Madison, I guess. Uh-oh, she's frozen. Well, anyways, um, Pam, that was excellent. Good job.
Thank you.
You're frozen. I hope we can get you back on.
I'll
Um,
be happy to come back.
oh, good. Thank you so much. Okay, you came back. You were frozen for a second. I'm glad you're back. That's good. Your camera was frozen. You were like,
I was?
yeah. Don't
Oh,
worry. You had a good smile on your face while it was frozen, so that worked out. But anyways, anyways, let's see here. We've got next up is Christopher T. George. Christopher, he's been participating in our show throughout the quarantine time, and it's been really interesting. Uh, in my perception, I think his stuff is really, it's very just engaging. Can be moody, you know, kind of sometimes kind of freaky, kind of thriller or whatever, and very historically oriented. I really like his stuff. So, anyways, um, Chris, would you want to talk about yourself at all?
Well, I might have a song or two. Not that I'm going to sing them. I'm going to play a song
Okay.
in a few minutes if we have time for Frank, because I have a song that I wrote about Elvis. And I'd like Frank to hear that. But I'm going to start off with a few
Cool.
C items from my Liverpool background. This first one is a found poem that I created from Herman Melville's Redburn, his first voyage, 1849. The Dead House at the old church of St. Nicholas, Liverpool. Whenever I passed up Chapel Street, I used to see a crowd gazing through the grim iron grating of the door upon the faces that drowned within. And once, when the door was opened, I saw a sailor stretched out, stark and stiff, with the sleeve of his frock rolled up and showing his name and date of birth tattooed upon his arm. It was a sight full of suggestions. He seemed his own headstone. And this one, if you will, spoken in the voice of an older sailor, my sea-worn heart. I've known seas tall as the Himalayas, belaying sails off Cape Horn, frozen as hard as iron. I, with frostbit fingers, I have dreamed of you, my sweet darling, my one true love, my Mary Lou. Such things I have seen, tropic bites like gas, oceans of temptation where I've fallen, lass. Such ports in hell I've known, devil men too. So I have believed I'd never sail back to you. I've braved the Sunda Trench, the Malacca Strait, hoping beyond praying that for me you might wait. In a fever, I do not deserve your affection, this I know. Sea serpents, shark's teeth, torment me where'er I go. Forgive me, Mary Lou, I am but a weak and humble man. The sea is in my bones, my blood. It makes me what I am. And a longer piece spoken in the voice of a younger sailor. This is called Death Carved a Cavern. The night that death hurled Atherton from my life, a gale off Cape Horn had us trapped. Huge midwinter seas crashed into the Star of Bethlehem, staggering her. Aloft, Atherton and I, cold and sodden, fought with torn hands to reef the frozen topsail. Hail driving into us, the wind shrieking in the rigging. A violent roll flung us to leeward, and Atherton fell, clutching the footrope as if crucified. Jesus, help me. I reached down. The ship lurched, wrenching the rope away. He dropped to the waves, his eyes white, mouth open dumbly. I waded through thigh-high seas and pleaded with Captain Peters to lower the longboat. He shouted, "Don't be a damn fool, lad." The carpenter and mate held me back. I couldn't believe Atherton had gone. The clipper ran on in the gale. Later, all sail taken in, riding the storm, we held a service. The captain read prayers. We sailors sang hymns. The vomitous stink of bilge water filled the ship. I thought, at least on land, new life stirs amongst the dying. It had been Easter when I met Jim Atherton in Liverpool, red curls, upright as a mast, tarpaulin hat askew. He bought me port and scouse at the Angel, buoying my spirit. Aye, ye'll become a sailor soon enough, ye'll see, he chuckled as he shouldered his sea chest down to Prince's Dock, his face red as a soldier's tunic, his green eyes gleaming. In nightmares, I see that face dropping from the yard. In the crew, death had carved a cavern. The irritations of life together faded in the aftermath of his fall. The night was hollow without his rasping snore. I no longer had to save him from his murmured nightmares, shaking the arm-tattooed Mary Ellen in a love knot. His bunk in the forecastle remained empty, a patch of grease where he'd laid his head. Off the coast of Chile, the wind dropped. We stood becalmed. Fog slunk across the deck, all sails set to catch a breeze. The ship's bell toiled across the quiet seas. Below, Captain Peters auctioned Atherton's belongings. There was piteous little, everything diminished by death. I bought his hornpipe and tarpaulin hat for Mary Ellen, remembering her weeping, black-shawled as we glided out of dark. "You'll be in paradise, Mary Ellen, you'll see," he'd whispered. "I'll jump ship in California and go digging for gold." Next morning, a dark cloud blew in from the west. We sprang into the rigging to reef the sails. Our labor made the greater where the man's short. I thought who or what would be taken now. I glanced below and saw the cook run from the galley. He pitched something from a basket into the sea. It was the weevilly bread that Atherton had grumbled about. The loaves bobbed on the waves, drifting behind us, floating back to where he had fallen. Thank you.
Good job.
That was very good. I don't have a lot of commentary on that, but that was really interesting. I really like the way your stuff is very kind of like at another point in time. A word that I like to use when I can, when I feel like it's appropriate, is anachronistic.
Okay.
I really feel like a lot of your stuff is very anachronistic. Like you're kind of like bringing another time into the room or whatnot. I guess a lot of people do. We're all talking about things that have happened before, so I guess technically all that we do is historic in a way. But it's just really neat to hear stuff that's kind of in the perspective of like another point in time in history, maybe before our time or whatever. That's pretty cool. Um, it's I feel like I I say this time and time again on these shows. Someone said a long time ago on one of our shows how important it is to take eyewitness accounts of history from everyday people. Uh, maybe just as seriously as like something that we might get from a history book, because the eyewitness accounts really tell it like it is and how people saw it, and not necessarily how the editors of a history book would choose to portray it. So I think that's kind of cool. But right on. Okay, Frank D'Onofrio. Frank, it's really nice to talk with you today. Brian had told me that you had recently written a book about Elvis Presley, and it's doing decent on Amazon. Is that correct?
That's correct. I had the idea a few years ago. I was in Memphis, Tennessee, and I was visiting Graceland, and it came to me. I grew up in the '70s, so growing up in the '70s, rock and roll was Led Zeppelin and Ozzy Osbourne and the Black Sabbath, so Elvis Presley music did not seem like rock and roll to me. Okay, it seemed like kind of tame. And I've been carrying it around for many years, and Elvis Presley is the king of rock and roll. And I always wanted to find out, why is that the case? And I had gotten a job I'm a consultant, an IT consultant, and I got a job working down in Memphis, and went to visit Graceland with my wife, and who also is a large Elvis Presley fan, and just got the idea that, well, let's figure out why. And I did some inspection and worked on it, and found that the number one hit in 1954, prior to Elvis being on the scene, was "How Much Was That Doggy in the Window?" "Oh My Papa," and songs like that. And basically, music was dull. I mean, it really was. It was very dull. You had Perry Como and Dean Martin, but the music was very dull. And I say this, that even Frank Sinatra, as great as he was running through a particular problem with his label, which was Columbia at the time. They felt that he wasn't selling records enough, so they decided to spruce up his music by pairing him up with a dog called Dagmar. And Dagmar actually got billing on the record with Frank Sinatra. Thankfully, it was second billing and it wasn't first billing. But what had transpired was the world was looking for something different. The economy was changing. You had middle class was now big, and people had disposable income. The war was over, and the United States was in a very boom time of year, time in our history. But at the same time, there was an underlying current underneath what was going on. There was a specter of the Jim Crow, and the Jim Crow South, and what people had fought World War II for, what they fought fascism, was to create an environment where people were going to be able to live in freedom, and yet their neighbors couldn't live with them. And it was an entirely frustrating situation, I think, for the entire world. We were displaying what we felt that we were as a country. Lo and behold, there was a music that was growing called rhythm and blues, only that was called back then Negro music. And it was only likened by a small group of people, about 15% of the population. And a lot of the music was being performed and was being worked on in and around Memphis, Tennessee, on Beale Street. And one of the greats of the blues, B.B. King, was a young up-and-coming hotshot back then. And Elvis Presley lived in the Lauderdale Courts, which was about, say, about a mile and a half from Beale Street. It was in a very poor neighborhood. Elvis Presley was in the projects, the low-income housing projects, and his family did not have a lot of money. Elvis Presley, as I say, wasn't just poor; he was born dirt poor, and the concept of dirt poor means he was born in a shack with a dirt floor. It was a one-room shack. And they moved up in the world by moving to Memphis, and they had a nicer accommodations. They moved to Memphis, and Elvis was visiting Beale Street and listening to black entertainers. Outside, you can go in and actually buy a Coke and listen to the rhythm and blues music. And also, there was a great DJ back at that time called Dewey Phillips, and Dewey would play rhythm and blues music for people in the Memphis area. Well, Dewey's reached all the way about 3 hours east, west, and south, north and south. And one of his listeners was a young up-and-coming young man named Buddy Holly, in addition to Elvis Presley. He had a number of people listening to the rhythm and blues music. So Elvis Presley's listening to all of this music, and he's growing up. He grew up in Tupelo, Mississippi, and in a very predominantly black neighborhood. And he had an affinity for rhythm and blues music. And he also had an affinity for gospel. And he used to listen to gospel music all the time and go to the black churches because he felt that the black churches had more lively sound. And then all of a sudden, on July 5th, 1954, Elvis Presley was asked by Sam Phillips to come in and try a tape of a song. And as he's sitting down and he's taping the song, Sam didn't get the sound that he wanted. Honestly, Elvis Presley was singing everything that he could, and they didn't like it. Nothing was sticking. And after about 4 hours of playing almost every song, and Elvis had a photographic memory, and he could play songs up and down. And after about 4 hours of playing music, the tapes had stopped, and the boys, Bill Black and Scotty Moore, stepped out to get a Coke. They say actually probably get a smoke. And Elvis was sitting in the room all by himself. Now, those who knew Elvis and talked about Elvis, Elvis was a very nervous young man and could not sit still. And he was pacing the floor. And in all honesty, if you really want to think about it, Elvis Presley's career almost ended right there. And no one would have heard of him. While they were out taking a smoke, Elvis was fiddling with his guitar, and he picked up his old beat-up guitar and started strumming a song by a man called Big Arthur Crudup, which was a blues song from the 1940s called That's All Right, Mama. And Elvis was strumming the song, but Elvis strummed the song slightly different. The song was more in a more lively, effervescent sound than Big Arthur. Or, as you know, the blues was a very lamenty type of sound. It was blue. As I said, you have to live life to play the blues. That's what B.B. King said. And after Elvis is playing this song and he starts playing it, and he's just humming and singing, in comes Scotty Moore and Bill Black. Bill starts picking up the bass and he starts slapping the bass. And Scotty starts playing the rhythm guitar track on it. And all of a sudden, Sam Phillips, now anybody else in that control room that night, Elvis is not even a footnote in history. No one would have ever heard of him. Any other person in that control room, anybody else other than Sam Phillips, who had an affinity for black music and rhythm and blues, would have just ended it right there. But Sam, I guess he woke up from his sleep because they didn't hear from him for 4 hours. And all of a sudden he sticks his head in and he says, "What are you boys doing in there?" And Elvis goes, "Well, I'm real sorry, Mr. Phillips. We're just horsing around." And Sam goes, "Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it." And he turns on the recording. And that is where lightning struck. Now, Sam Phillips, and I'm going to, for the wonky people out there, I'm a project manager, just to let you know by trade. For the wonky people out there, I'll let you know something. Elvis Presley and Sam Phillips invented the agile methodology of recording music in 1954. Okay? For those of you who don't understand what agile methodology is, agile in project management or in development is where you build on and you start building on it and changing the program. You don't have a plan. Prior to 1954, the way music was mostly written was they would go into a studio, and when they went into the studio, it would all be done with charts and sheets. Well, Elvis didn't read music. Nobody there read music. They were working in an iterative fashion. And Sam would go, "Wait a minute, I like that sound. Could you add this? Yeah, that sounds good. Could you add this?" And they would go back and forth. All of a sudden, after about an hour and a half, Sam turns off the recording and goes, "I think we got it." Plays it for the guys. And all of a sudden, it was an amazing situation because they heard the song for the first time, and lightning struck, and it was amazing. And now, here's the point: they had this song, but they didn't know what to do with it. Okay, and it wasn't like today, where if something goes on and it's an instantaneous. We're talking about 1954. All right. It takes time. You have to burn a record. But I'm going to read you something. Okay. This came from Scotty Moore. When we heard the playback, we knew that we had some kind of rhythm and a little different rhythm, but none of us knew what to call it. And we didn't call it anything at the time. The stories say Sam was looking for a white man who could sing black music. Well, he never mentioned anything like that to us. I understand what Elvis was doing, and it didn't sound black to me, but he did have that feel that some black singers have. Now, you think about that for a minute, okay? Now, I will say this. I say in the book, it's kind of disingenuous for Sam Phillips to say he wanted a black guy, or he wanted a white guy who could sing black music, okay? Because in all honesty, if that's what Sam wanted, Sam had a recording studio, and if it was me, and he's a businessman, I'd be parading every white singer on the planet to see if they could sing black music. That wasn't the case. It was an accident. Sam had no idea. But now he had this recording. And what do you do with the recording? Where are you going to record it? Where are you going to play it? Sam got on the phone and called his friend Dewey. Dewey Phillips and Sam Phillips, no relation. Dewey would play rhythm and blues music, and Sam said, "I got a guy I want you to listen to." And so on July 7th, Sam brings Dewey Phillips into the studio. Actually goes over to WHBQ. Dewey was playing music, and that night Sam played the record, the acetate, for Dewey Phillips. And Dewey goes, "Wow." Now, Dewey came over to the studios with the 6-pack of Falstaff and a couple of shots. Dewey liked to drink a little bit. And they played the song, and he played the song for him 5 times. And Dewey said, "Let me get back to you." Well, kind of just sat there for a minute, and Sam didn't know what to do. And if Dewey wasn't going to play it, he didn't think anybody else would play it. Now, as I said, Dewey Phillips had over 150,000 people a night tune in to his radio show, Red Hot and Blue, in Memphis, Tennessee. That's unheard of when you think about it. That's for a local, and that's local Memphis. it's said that 35% of Memphis tuned into that radio station every night to listen to Dewey. And so Dewey had this thing about music, and that's the thing that Sam was worried about, because he played this song. If Dewey did not like the song, he'd take it off the record player, kind of scratch the needle. He'd take it off the record player and he'd smash it up against the wall. That was Dewey's. And Dewey's moniker was, okay, he would always say, well, you know, the God, it's going to be a hit. Well, we didn't quite know what was going to happen. And so Dewey calls the next morning and calls Sam, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning. And Sam said, Dewey, you were like 2 sheets to the wind last night when I left you. I didn't think I would hear from you. And Dewey said, you get that guy out here. We're going to play his song tonight. And so Sam calls Elvis and says to Elvis, Elvis was driving a truck for an electrical company, and says, Elvis, you're going to be on the radio tonight. So Elvis goes home and he sets the radio to WHBQ and then leaves. His mother, his father, his aunt, they're all sitting there in front of the radio, and he doesn't want to be there. And Elvis goes to the movies. Okay. And so Elvis goes to the movies. He sits down, and Dewey Phillips plays a song. Dewey Phillips doesn't just play the song. Dewey Phillips plays it 30 times. And he gets thousands of phone calls. He gets telegrams from people calling, wanting to hear the song over and over again. So Dewey calls Elvis's house, and Mrs. Presley, Gladys Presley, says, I'm sorry, Mr. Phillips, but Elvis went to the movies. So Dewey says, I don't care what, you get your cotton picking son, okay, into the studio tonight. I'm going to interview him. So Mrs. Presley, Vernon Presley, and Gladys Presley are walking down every aisle of the movie theater trying to find young Elvis Presley, who's 19 years old. Okay? And they pull him out of the movie theater, and he goes over to WHBQ, and Sam Phillips said, Elvis, I'm going to interview you. And Elvis says, well, I ain't never been interviewed before, Mr. Phillips. And Dewey says, don't worry, just don't say nothing dirty. And he goes and he starts talking to Elvis, and he asks Elvis, well, Elvis, what song is this? He tells him, it's That's All Right, Mama. And then he asks him a couple of questions. And one of the questions was specifically to ask him where he went to high school, because we're talking about the segregated South at the time. And so when Elvis told everybody he went to Hume's High School, then they would know that he was not a black guy. He was a white man. He was a white boy. And so now Elvis is interviewed, and at the end, the interview's over, and he turns to Dewey Phillips and he says, Mr. Phillips, when are you going to interview me? And Dewey says, I just did, son. Elvis turned white as a ghost. And that is where lightning struck. And it was amazing. Now, I'm going to tell you something. What you have to understand was, on July 8th, 1954, Elvis had not swiveled a hip, curled a lip, had not performed in front of a single person, yet he made an impact on the world. Think about that for a minute. And now they have one song. And so now, now they're getting people calling up wanting to buy the record. So now they have to go and create a second song, because back then you had A side and a B side to a record. And so all the boys get back into the recording studio, and now they got to make another song. And then once again, trying to figure out what song. And it was like accident again, because they had to figure out what the second song was going to be. What was that second song going to be? What was the song that they were going to create Now, I want to go back for a second about Dewey Phillips. In my book, I call Dewey Phillips because if Sam Phillips and Elvis Presley created rock and roll, was the output of rock and roll, I call Dewey Phillips the midwife of rock and roll. He delivered rock and roll to the masses. And if it was not for Dewey Phillips, Elvis, again, is a footnote in history. This was relayed to me by Jerry Phillips, Dewey's son, where he said to me, he said, I was, my daddy had died and we're at the funeral home and Elvis had walked in. Now, Elvis went and paid his respects to Dewey. They were friends. Unfortunately, Dewey Phillips had gone through some serious problems, and he died pretty much drank himself to death. And there's Dewey in the sitting there in the casket, and Elvis comes in after everybody had left and sat down with Jerry Phillips. Now, Jerry right now, I believe, is about 74. And he quoted this to me. He says, Elvis came up to me and he said, son, your daddy was a great man. He said, I don't know if I'd gone as far or as fast as I am if it was not for what your daddy did for me. And you should be very proud of him. And I cried when Dewey relayed that story to me. And it was when Jerry relayed the story about his father, because how many of us really get a chance to have a great person come up to us and tell them that their father was instrumental in their life. And so now you have this song, and Elvis Presley now has to come up with another song. And so they come up with with a song from really a song from Disney, okay? I'm sorry, my apologies. They come up with Blue Moon of Kentucky, which is the second song, which is the B-side. Blue Moon of Kentucky was a waltz. Once again, Elvis Presley changing the tempo of the song made it into a rock and roll song. So Blue Moon of Kentucky was written as a waltz and then became a rock and roll song because of Elvis Presley. Once again, Elvis had delivered rock and roll. So do you have any questions at the moment? Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Well, not as much questions except for some commentary that I'm really excited to hear about the improvisational / spontaneous nature that you were talking about earlier about the production of the recordings. That's very interesting to me. I think whenever you can get a group of people and come up with something in a span of a few hours, if you can, and then like come up with some tunes, and then write the lyrics, and then have someone who's really good at improvisationally putting lyrics to music, in a catchy sort of way, and then just like coming up with like a spontaneous pop song. What was that called again? That format that they use?
Well, it's called, well, today if you're in a application development, you call it Scrum Agile processing. I have an article on medium.com, how Elvis Presley and Sam Phillips delivered the Scrum Agile process. Today, now there's like a new process, right? Everybody says, wow, Scrum Agile, we got to do work in Scrum. It was already developed. Sam Phillips said they changed music history over 65 years ago. Basically, they using a methodology today that's being used to develop applications.
Interesting. Have you ever found interesting the difference between you have some people that they're really good at music? I think that there's like a pretty good spectrum between these different two types of people.
Yes.
But on one extreme, you have people that are really good at reading music, understand music theory, and they're really good at playing back things that are pre-written, right? And on the other hand, you have people that may not like fully understand, music theory. Maybe they know some chords, or maybe they're familiar with Nashville number theory or something like that.
Right.
But and they may not even be super good at math, but they understand the system or whatnot.
Right.
And so on that hand, you have people. Those people may be more likely to be songwriters, I guess, or producers, I guess.
Well, Elvis Presley never wrote music.
Okay.
Okay. What he did, though, was he understood a sound that he was looking to convey. Okay. So a good example is let's take, for example, Blue Moon of Kentucky. It's a waltz. Okay.
Right.
But
Yeah.
he changed the tempo to create a different sound. All right. So, Christopher, think about the Beatles, right? The Beatles had a different kind of sound. They were playing Mercy, what they call the Mercy music. Okay. Their sound was focused on that. Elvis Presley delivered a different sound. That was rock and roll. It was not rhythm and blues. And everybody says, well, Elvis co-opted rhythm and blues. Elvis never co-opted rhythm and blues. Elvis changed rhythm and blues and converted it into rock and roll.
Okay.
All right. And so Elvis Presley is credited on all of his songs as being the producer of the song. Why? Because he produced the sound that he was looking for. Where he may have gotten the song from a songwriter, he may have gotten the song that was given to him, and he played their song. He altered the song so that it sounded in an Elvis fashion.
Understood. So
And then when that happened is it opened the door for others. Go ahead.
right, so he would take like the melody and words of prior styles and alter the format of the tempo and rhythm.
Yes.
To create like an entire new style of music.
Absolutely. That's exactly what he did. That's exactly what he did. Now here's the second part. No one had ever seen Elvis Presley perform. Okay. Up to this point, he had recorded 2 songs. That's it. No one ever seen him record. So now he's got to get up in front of people and sing. And Elvis Presley had never sang before. I had somebody wrote a review of my book on Amazon and said, "Oh, yes, he did. He sang Old Shep in 8th grade. He sang this other song." No, Elvis Presley never performed rock and roll in front of anybody. Okay, prior to 2 weeks from the recording on July 15th, okay, at the Bon Air Club, where he got up and he sang those songs. Now, before he got up on stage, Elvis was nervous. He had never sang in front of anyone. And Sam Phillips talked to him. He said, "Miss Phillips, I don't know if I can get up there." He says, "Elvis, you got to go. You got to get up there." And so he gets up there and he starts playing. Now, what Elvis had done was he started, remember now, he loved gospel. He watched the gospel people sing gospel music, and they moved to the music. And all of a sudden, he'd be moving, and as Scotty Moore puts it, as I put in the book, he had his, these loose breeches on, and he would move, and it would look like things were moving down there. And the girls were going crazy. And all of a sudden, he was now a hit. Now they wanted him to play. And now he was a local hit. Now, Elvis Presley, in the month of July and August, was now a hit in Memphis. He had achieved his lifelong dream of being able to sing in front of people and to have a career in music. The next step was the Grand Ole Opry. So the Grand Ole Opry calls him and wants him to perform. And Elvis gets up and he goes out to Nashville and he sings at the Grand Ole Opry. And he sang one song, Blue Moon of Kentucky. And Elvis Presley bombed like you wouldn't believe. And he was told by the producer of the Grand Ole Opry, "Son, I heard you're a truck driver. I suggest that you continue driving the truck.
Wow.
Okay. And Elvis Presley was, to say the least, upset. But he had another concert in 2 weeks on the Louisiana Hayride. And so Elvis Presley goes down to Shreveport, Louisiana, drives down, I think it was about 4 hours from Memphis, and drives down to Shreveport, Louisiana. And he has the same thing happen to him that happened to him at the Bon Air Club. He's saying it to Sam Phillips, Mr. Phillips, I don't know if I can get up there. There's lots of these people up there. I don't know what's going to happen. And Sam put his arm on Elvis Presley and he said, son, you get up there. You be you. Now, here's the thing. The first session was not remarkable. The first session on Louisiana Hayride was not remarkable. He did That's All Right, and it was okay, but they weren't going crazy. Here, some people, but everybody did two ways through, so they played again. The second time, the older people who were used to sitting in the front had left, and all the college kids had moved up to the front of the aisle. And Elvis went again and started dancing as he was singing. And the place went crazy. And Elvis Presley did what Elvis Presley did almost every time he had a stumbling block in his career. He overcame it. Think back to the original part of the story. He's playing for 4 hours, nothing's happening, okay? And then lightning strikes. All of a sudden, it's amazing how it wasn't working, and then all of a sudden he goes beyond that point and changes it.
I can't tell you how much I appreciated that. I just wanted to like make some commentary on what you just talked about. This is like a brief, probably extremely abridged history of Elvis Presley, right? Like, I mean, there's so much more to the story, but this is kind of like
3 months. This is the first 3 months.
Yes, I mean, this has been a phenomenal story, and I kind of wish that I had like a Zoom event just to dedicate to this story in itself, kind of like a documentary based on your book, because it's phenomenal. One thing, I would like to leave it here. However, I want to come back around and I want to ask some questions about yourself and about your life and what got you to this point of being a program producer and writing this book. And it's really interesting stuff.
Sure.
And thank you so much, very much. It's a really interesting story. Real quick, I'm gonna try to do this share screen thing. Pretty much what I'm going to do, I've got pulled up on my computer is a copy of his book, and I want to share with everybody what the book looks like and what to expect. So that's the book, y'all. So I think it's really cool. I really like the design, the white on red, and then you've got the silhouette of Elvis right there with the collar that's off color with the guitar. I really like that design. So
I found it. I actually found it on the internet, and actually it's just I didn't want to put his picture up there because the book outlines the path to becoming the king of rock and roll. Okay.
Right. And plus, everybody knows what Elvis looks like, and I feel like this kind of the difference between literature and the difference between television is that literature, you're supposed to really use your full imagination, and with television, it's all presented there for you. So.
Well, let me add one more thing. Elvis Presley, I believe, was crowned the king of rock and roll when 85% of the American people were tuning into the Ed Sullivan Show on September 9th, 1956. And the book takes you up to that point as to how that happened. And one of the keys to understand 1956 is Elvis Presley in 1956 sold 86% of all of the records sold by RCA Records that year. 86%.
You're on Facebook, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'll connect with you through Brian,
Thank
and
you.
we'll talk about that. That sounds pretty interesting, actually. I'm thrilled. All right, thank you, sir. All right,
Thank
anyways, next up we've got um, Francesca Kirkpatrick. Um, I think you have some stuff you would like to read tonight. Is that correct? Hi, how are you doing tonight?
Good. I was out filming for another video. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's
Got back
awesome.
now.
Oh, that's cool. That's great.
It was a project that's going on in Scotland with Finn Hall, one of our other people that you haven't met yet, but maybe he can come on in. Christopher George knows him pretty well, but I was in his last movie, and we had a project called Desolation. So I was out filming for Desolation. Anyway, so this is one that I love because it's coming up, the Kentucky Derby and the horse season and all this other kind of stuff. So I'll read you this. She has horses. My friend began to tell me about her horses. I thought owning horses was a very interesting hobby. She lives on a ranch in Texas near George W. Bush. We have conversations about how her favorite horse is named Francesca, which is almost my name, Francesca. So I listen close. She tells how she has certified horses with cool names like Stormy, Blaze, and Chase. She even takes them to a horse show in Lexington, Kentucky. Every year, they drive from Texas with the horse trailer they own and sell a few horses at the show. I wanted to see photos of those horses. To my surprise, she handed me a photo of miniature plastic horses, neatly lined up on a shelf in her bedroom. So that was one that sort of uh, that I made, and we just had St. Patrick's Day, which I don't know. I wrote this when I was on my way to Ireland in the sea. I was on a boat, and I wrote this thing called "I Sailed Upon an Irish Sea." I sailed upon an Irish sea. I tossed and tumbled in the water, for a storm was by my side. My boat was in the ocean blue, riding it on high tide. Fishing has been my life at sea. In my boat ride, the storms drew closer as I left the shore. All I want for supper is my catch. I just want to play fetch with my lassie and my Irish setter, dancing a jig with my wife of fair skin. Repair my roof before rain and wind get in. I sail up on an Irish sea. There is no other life for me. Row me boat out into the water, catch of the day, and I am on my way back to those that love me. No, my name ain't Captain Jack Jamie. All my friends just call me Finny, 'cause I catch those fish aplenty. The gale winds are blowing. I gotta make it home before it starts snowing. There ain't no better place for me than the arms of my sweet pea. I am happy with my hearth, my plate and ale. That's all I dream of when I set sails up on the Irish Sea. So thank you guys. I have more, but I think I want to let other people have a chance too. Thanks.
Good job, Francesca.
Thank you very much, Francesca. That was awesome. I love stuff about horses. Um, my wife and I we watch a lot of stuff about horses, and
Mm.
uh, uh, a poem or writing about a horse is always great, of course. So, anyways.
Yeah, horses, of course, especially a plastic horse, right?
That's right. That's right. No, that's cool. That's very good. Thank you. And I really would like to have you come back around and participate some more. Francesca, she writes a lot of stuff on her own, and she's also put quoted a lot of really amazing works from all over the place, and it's just always great to hear what she has to say every month. So I appreciate it a lot. I almost said every week, but I was like, no, it's every month. So it seems like time flies so quickly that it's almost like it is every week. You know what I mean? So yeah. But
Thanks.
next up, we've got Chanson, are you still here?
I'm here.
Hi, how are you? My name's David Koci. I'm the host, and I would you like to participate and read some words tonight?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very
Um.
much.
Let me
First
see.
of all, would you like to talk about yourself for a second and let us know a few things about who you are?
Yes. How you doing? My name is Chanson Byrd. I'm a native of Baltimore, Maryland. Um. I have two books. Um. From Crisis to Confidence and An Open Soul, which are books of poetry on Amazon. Um. And um. I have tons of journals here, so I write poetry like every day. So
Okay. One moment, Chance. I'm trying to get you. I was trying to pin you so that I only saw you on the screen.
oh,
I'm sorry. Oh well, this will be fine. How are you? Okay, go ahead, please.
okay. This piece is untitled, but it says, "In everything there's a word, a singer's breath that hangs in the air, a preacher's witness when God sends them your way, a poet's lyrics that's been purged in the fire, the sight of imposing trees waving their branches, the moon glowing on the water on any enchanting evening, the stars lighting my path as I travel the road to get home, vitriol from a loved one causing one's spirit to be paralyzed and possibly broken. In everything there is a word that either brings life or death. The decision is yours, but I'd rather redeem and restore than to ridicule and rebuke." Thank
Thank you very much.
you. Thank you.
That that was very interesting. Like, amen. Like, I really like that.
Thank you.
I feel like it's super important to how you say you said it best, but like yeah, just definitely yeah, like encourage.
Yeah.
Like I've heard a lot of people say you want to surround yourself with people that genuinely want what's best for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that sort of thing, and people who want what's best for themselves, you can let them to the wayside or whatnot, I guess. If
Yeah.
and pay more attention to people that you genuinely care about what happens to them and they genuinely care about what happens to you, the reciprocity.
Yeah.
um is there anything else you would like to read?
Oh yes, I can.
Awesome,
uh
yeah, thank you, sir.
let's see. Um okay. These hands. These hands once exhibited these hands once exhibited low motor skills, sweat like pigs in the summer's heat, or freeze without notice. These hands held my bottle of milk, held a fork to eat. These hands tied a knot in my laced shoes after dressing myself for school. These hands have known embraces and tightly gripped other hands. These hands have wiped my weeping eyes after many a broken heart. These hands have been swollen from high blood pressure and ached from carpal tunnel. These hands fold to pray and extend toward heaven when our holy worship thank God for these hands.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
Yes, that was awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks for participating.
Oh,
um
thanks for that.
oh, you're welcome. Yeah, is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Are you from Nashville or
No, I'm from Baltimore.
Baltimore? Okay, thank you. um I hope you
I'm about 30 minutes north of you.
Okay. Okay. Nice meeting you. I'll put my social media information on the chat.
thank you very much.
Mhm.
um and what I can do, what I've told people before, this show is kind of we put it on YouTube. I try to put a beginning and an end for the show with like some music and stuff to make it a bit more interesting. And I
Mhm.
always put credits of everybody that participated at the beginning, at the end of the show. So towards the end of the show, I can put like links to you all stuff and everything. And I'll try to make sure that I save. Yeah, if y'all put the stuff on the public chat, I can save the chat, and then I can go back and on the YouTube video itself, in the info of the video,
Right.
I can put your links and stuff like that, and I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And everybody else, same with you all. I don't always get links from y'all, but when you do, I appreciate it because I can really give you the credit I feel you deserve. So thank you. Awesome. So let's see who's up next. Well, I guess let's see here. Okay. Yes. I'm gonna try to do something now. I've got a song I'd like to play for y'all. So is everybody ready for a song? All right. Hi, my name is David Koci. I'm going to play a song for y'all called Sentimental Dream that I wrote. And Nathan Ridley's on guitar. Kate Rietter is on drums. And I just want y'all to think of all your options and choices, because when I think of mine, I have more hope. Some dream of the waters when there's not much that matters, when hearts can beat slowly and time loses meaning. But these current times are the highest contradiction to any valid submission of requestful paradise, 'cause alarms will sound and gas will fill the tanks, driven or consuming payments that are arranged, and the images of the past will fade into glory. And all who came before me will echo in the sentiment of dream. Will echo in the sentiment of dream. Could I lose it all? As hard as my ethic drives me day to day, and will seasons pass? Could any of this last? The horizon in front of me is just a symbol of uncertainty. 'Cause alarms will sound and gas will fill the tanks, driven or consuming payments that are arranged, and the images of the past will fade into glory. And all who came before me will echo in the sentiment of dream. Will echo in the sentiment of dream. Oh, and lavender will ride the ocean to the shore of endless new beginnings. I have no crew to know, and a bridge to a new city, and the traffic as we cross. I understand the permanence of time gone by, but love is never lost. Because alarms will sound and gas will fill the tanks of the driven or consuming payments that are arranged, and the images of the past will fade into glory. And all who came before me will echo in the sentiment of dreams.
will echo in the sentimental dream. 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 Thank you all very much.
I think I had a Phillip Henry. He's going to go next, I think. Are you ready, Phillip?
Yes, just need to unmute.
Sure. All right, so
And,
Phillip has some music.
Hope
Phillip,
you don't mind me. Hope you don't mind me playing along.
no, you're fine. No, go for it.
Well, it's something, I joined a group out in Iowa. A friend of mine, engineers, a long-standing. Well, he basically takes care of all the engineering and a lot of the booking. Fabulous musician named Tim Britton, fabulous Irish traditional musician, Irish trad musician, and a lot of other things. But he's also a crackerjack engineer with his own studio. And they've been doing an open mic as well as weekend concerts and things at Cafe Paradiso in Fairfield for, I don't know, 10 years. And they went online, and I go out and join them. And one of the things that I got people doing out there was, muting themselves. And when somebody comes on to play, you play along. So we've all kind of learned each other's songs that way. That's kind of a lot of fun. I just want to point out too that I posted links. Anything you want to find out about me and what I'm up to is in there. I think I posted Reverb Nation and Facebook for Philip Henry Christopher publishes writing. Philadelphia Phil performs music and records music, and that's so they're just the two are interchangeable, if not just a little confusing sometimes. So, and when I come to something that's really kind of wide open like this, I'm just whatever it seems like the day needs. And I thank you for introducing music and playing a song for us, playing a nice song. Because after all that talk about music and all that talk about Elvis and the origins of rock and roll, it's like I feel like I have to play songs instead of read poems. I did want to mention, Francesca, that more power to you doing that, doing Finn's call for a video. I just sent him a poem yesterday, the day before, asking him, did he think this would be a good poem for his next bolt, and he said, "Yeah, go for it." So I don't know if I can find the right desolation for a backdrop, but I've at least it's about the dead from Iraq and Afghanistan, American invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan. It's about the dead soldiers, and so we've certainly got a mess of war monuments in Indianapolis. I suppose I could go shoot down there, but. So yeah, when I think he did, I think he set a deadline. Doc, you may have heard of this too from Finn, but he set a deadline, I think, of May 9th or something. Am I right? To get the videos to him. So I'm happy to see Doc here too. I thought I'll do a couple of songs for us, and since it's a combination of literature, of poetry and nonfiction today, and prose. I thought I'd do some songs that have some, a couple of songs that, or at least one song that has some literary merit. And if there's time, come back around. I have one that Spanish authors are present in, and I might do that when it's a little high energy if we have time later. But I want to do a tune that I woke up with on Christmas morning. Woke me up about 4 o'clock in the morning. I woke up out of a dream with practically the whole song written in my sleep. I staggered out and wrote down everything I could on some pieces of paper, every line that I could remember. But when I went back to sleep that night, the only thing I thought I might lose, because I didn't want to make a lot of noise, was the melody. The melody and the verses were already in my dream, so I didn't have to do too much when I woke up the next day or later that day. I spent a big part of Christmas Day working on this song. So a little bit of a ragtimey thing. I'm coming out on the. I came out from my first concert in many, many months because of the pandemic. I've gotten my vaccinations and fully prepared to be out in the world, and I'm performing again on Thursday night, and I did a show with a friend of mine who was the only other one the only other musician I work with who was vaccinated, and we did a show at the end of last month, and we did this tune with piano and guitar and switched it over to trombone and ukulele before we were done. So it was kind of a vaudevillian trick. So this one is called Me, Woody, Bob, and You. Let me make a little adjustment here first. Well, I woke up this morning with Bob Dylan in my mind. Not sure what he was doing in there. Was quite a curious find. He said, I heard you could write a song. Is that true? I said, I'm not sure what to do with them all, but I've written quite a few. He said, are they any good? Are any of them blue? I said, to the color of driving rain, twisting tornadoes too. Box of melting Crayolas, tangled up in goo. He said, if you're so inclined, would you play me one or two? I said, I don't think you'd like them much. They're mostly yellow and gold, and written with an attitude from living long and growing old. But I suppose it wouldn't matter if you'd like to hear them anyway. One or two might not be so bad, that's what some people say. We'll hop on a train with Woody, but only if you dare. 'Cause you might be bound for glory and land most anywhere. I asked Woody where we going. He said, brother, I don't know, but this boxcar's leaving. It's time to go. Rolling across the country, sun shining down, and no better way of going from town to town. There's folks out there waiting to hear my songs, so I gotta go and find out where I belong. I was wandering down Rampart Street when an angel led me on. She went second lining down the road, singing about Kubla Khan. She'd been looking everywhere for that stately pleasure dome. I thought if I had any sense, I'd follow that angel home. There was Dixieland all afternoon, blues all through the night. Trombones on Frenchman Street, it's plentiful a sight. I asked her, are you magical? She said, if you believe me to be, and you can dream forever down here, just wait and see. Well, I hope you find where you're going, be it near or far. I'm sure there'll be real fine folks wherever you are. We might be bound for glory when this day is through. Might be dancing down Rampart Street, me, Woody, Bob, and you. So I hope you find where you're going, be it near or far. Thank you. A little Woody Guthrie, a little Bob Dylan, a little Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and a whole lot of New Orleans. One of my favorite places. In fact, I do a little mini set of songs that I've written about New Orleans when I'm out with my band, which I think we'll all be together for the first time in more than a year on the 30th of April when we're playing a show here in Indianapolis, and we're going to make it a party. I mean, I just sent a message to the owner of the winery saying, how about a few bottles of wine and a whole bunch of guests, and we're going to have a party this time. And we'll bring everybody I play with. We'll all be there at the same time, including the young genius on guitar who went off to college last fall, and will get back just in time to play with us again. My bass player's son is a musical prodigy. We'll do a quiet song, and then if we need to wake up later, let me know. Have guitar will travel. But let me do a quiet song that I sang this for Poetry in the Brew, Nashville, you Nashville folks. It's kind of nice, folks from Nashville, folks from the East Coast. Half of you are from within minutes of where I grew up, and then the other, Nashville's 4 hours south of us, where I am now. So a tune that I did for Poetry in the, what did I do it for? Poetry in the Brew, and it was a serious song, something a little more serious. Another song that I woke up with in the morning, thinking I should probably not write unless I'm asleep. Woke up to the sound of church bells ringing, calling all the faithful home again. Lying in my bed, a dream still turning, be a while before my day begins. Close my eyes and drift away. Just let go. Close my eyes and drift away. Only peace I know. I never really cared for Sunday mornings and what the preachers have to say. All those fire and brimstone warnings, there has to be a better way. Close my eyes and drift away. Just let go. Close my eyes and drift away. Only peace I know. Outside a gentle rain is falling. Will it wash away the past? I hear distant bells calling. How long will these tears last? Close my eyes and drift away. Just let go. Close my eyes and drift away. Only peace I know. Close my eyes. Let go. Close my eyes. Peace I know. Woke up to the sound of church bells ringing, calling all the faithful. Home again.
Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Wow, that was phenomenal. Thank you so much.
You know who your voice reminds me of? Maybe you've heard this before. Willie
Who?
Nelson.
Oh, Willie.
Yeah.
I can see
I'm a
that.
fan.
Definitely.
That's always flattering. You know, I resisted doing any Willie tunes. I love them. I mean, I've been a Willie Nelson fan from way, way, way back, 45 years or more, you know. But I resisted doing any Willie Nelson tunes for years because I knew I would. I like to interpret songs, you know. I like to interpret them, and when I get near Willie, it doesn't sound like an interpretation anymore. It sounds like I'm trying to cover him. This song. I'll do a bit of a song, a piece of a song for you on that note because this is funny. I was doing a festival out in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, in 2017, and there was a guy sitting right up in the front row, just watching every move that I made, everything that I did, just mesmerized. I was just, and when I finished my my set and I went back to the musicians area behind the stage, this guy came around to the musicians area and he came running up to me and he said, I got to tell you, I'm Willie Nelson's biggest fan. I've got every album Willie Nelson ever made. I know every song Willie Nelson ever did. I've seen him 1,000 times. I don't know how many times he said he'd seen him, but I'm Willie Nelson's biggest fan ever. Been his fan and since I was young, and this guy must have been 70 at the time, right? And then he looked at me and he said, "But you got to tell me. You got to tell me." And I said, "What? What?" He said, "You did a Willie Nelson song in your set that I never heard before. You got to tell me where that song came from." And I looked at him real serious, and I stopped for a minute and I said, "I promised Willie I wouldn't tell anybody." And he lost it. He thought he had heard a Willie Nelson special super top secret song, but the song goes like the verse of the song. It opens in a kind of a baritone voice, and then it goes. There's a lonely song playing on the radio. I wonder, do you wonder just where did I go? Do you smile and think of how we were back then, my beautiful? Way back when. And he was sure that Willie Nelson had written that song. So
Great.
that's why I have done, I have played Willie Nelson songs with other people singing them. So I wouldn't catch that, you know. There only ever been one Willie. There'll never be another. And
Yeah,
just-
same as there's only one Elvis and never be another. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
all the best are one of a kind. You know, coming up on the 7th, I'm going to be doing a friend of mine hosts an open mic just north of Indianapolis here, and they've been online. I think they're going to stay online till the end of till the patio the stage outside opens up at this big brewery up north. And he's on the 7th. Wednesday, the 7th of April is the first year anniversary of the passing of John Prine. So he's another one that there will never ever be. There was never one like him, and won't be another one again. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to make a special case of going on to his online and singing 3 or 4 John Prine tunes for them, probably from the first album, because that's when I met John Prine's music, was when he had one album out, and he and Steve Goodman were doing a lot of shows together, and they were the thing to me about that is it was John Prine and Steve Goodman who a few years later I picked up a guitar. It was their inspiration, especially. I mean, I think I must have seen John Prine a half a dozen times in a year and a half, and Steve Goodman, the friend who taught me how to play guitar, he and I sat with our feet on the stage at the Main Point in Ardmore, Pennsylvania, watched Steve Goodman do 4 shows in 2 nights, and it got so bad that Steve was leaning over to ask us if it was okay to repeat a few songs because everybody else hadn't heard them already. And those people, that's who inspired me to be a songwriter, was great people like Steve Goodman, John Prine. Not to mention, you know, all the others. We still have Bob Dylan, we still have Willie Nelson, and that's a good thing. But yeah, so I never thought of when I was coming up. I love to sing, but one of the singers I work with, a fantastic singer, Rebecca Lawson, from a group called Celtic Rain. Google them and check their videos. They're fantastic. In fact, I'll be singing with Samuel and Rebecca for the first time in over a year soon, at the end of April. Rebecca, the night I met her husband was doing a duo thing. He's a fabulous classical trained guitar player. And we were talking, and she said, "I'm a singer." I said, "Fabulous, fabulous, wonderful. We will have to come hear you sing sometime." And she said, "And that's my husband." I said, "Oh, yeah. Okay, great. It's a great guitar player." She said, "Yes, he's a musician who sings." And I realized the difference is that, you know, like we do our best. We do our best, but we're songwriters, and it's very forgiving that we get called singers.
Right.
So, yeah, but I'm one of those people that applauded when Bob Dylan got Nobel Prize for Literature, because I was interviewed many years ago. One of my anti-war poems was published in the UK, and the editor contacted me. This was maybe 2006, 7, that's 5, 6, 7, I don't know, something like that. Contacted me and asked if I would consent to an interview. He was doing a special feature on songwriting and poetry.
Mhm.
And I thought it was particularly brave of him to do, because it really is, it stirs up a hornet's nest whenever to some poets, when you talk about songwriters, and some songwriters who fancy themselves poets aren't even close. But some songwriters are brilliant, and their poetry is just magnificent. And so we had a nice little dialogue about that. But I have always felt that those who can bridge the two as successfully as, say, somebody like Leonard Cohen,
Yeah.
and write and perform beautiful music, and write really, really, really complex and personal poetry at the same time, like those, that's a special calling. It's like I've spent most of my life trying to do that with only really measured success, in my own opinion. So thank goodness I can play and sing, because it gets me through all the times when I just haven't got a poem to write.
All right. Good stuff.
Thank you.
In the voice of Queen Elizabeth from Kids in the Hall. You're all such wonderful artists. I appreciate you all. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. That's old. I don't know. Does anybody remember that from Kids in the Hall? Like, I can't remember who did that. Was it Dave Foley that dressed up as the Queen of England?
Way after. I think that was during the time when I didn't have a TV for about 15 years. I didn't actually own a TV. When I did get one, I got an old VCR so I could watch movies. So I for about 20 years I don't think I watched any TV at all. So I missed a lot of funny things.
Well, that's okay.
Missed a lot of funny things. I'm not bragging about that. I missed a lot of good things too.
Well, I went probably from like 1999 through 2002, 2003. I think I went without a TV. I didn't have cable for most of the 2010s, actually. I just copped out. I don't know.
It's a good stretch. You'll get more songs written that way. You'll definitely. Now I have streaming. I have a streaming 4K TV to watch movies on, and documentaries, which has been great. Because I went to film school at Temple, so I'm kind of movies, documentaries, good video, stuff like that pleases me. I left film school convinced that when I got out of film school, I was convinced I would make the worst filmmaker ever, so I didn't try to do it. I went off and played music, and traveled around with a reggae band for a while, moved to Iowa. I finally got around to film again. Finally got around to film again by accident. My partner in 2010, I guess it was 2010 or 2011, was an actress, and I would look for calls. At the time, back then, there would be Craigslist calls for technical support, for acting, for modeling, for musicians, all kinds of things. People were still using Craigslist. And I would search the calls, and when something came up that looked interesting, I would give it to her. Sometimes people would make calls to book musicians. That would come up too. So that was just part of my routine. And I saw one that said that I thought was a call for a middle-aged guy to be a stunt double on a feature film. And I thought, that sounds like fun. The description sounds like I could do that. And I spent, in fact, until 2007, I spent 17 years teaching martial arts. That was part of my life, was, martial arts all day and into the evening, and music when I could get to it, and writing when I traveled mostly. A lot of my poems came out in that period when I traveled. So I called, or I sent it said send a picture and a CV or resume for actors. I sent him what I had, which was all martial arts and music and stuff like that as an artist, and he sent me back a note saying, "Okay, um, I'll give you a call." So he calls me and he says, "I'm at O'Hare. I'm routing back to Los Angeles. We'll be shooting in a few weeks, but I don't have it now. But when I get to Los Angeles, I'll send you some sides, and then we'll do an audition over the phone." And suddenly my brain went, "Wait, sides are words. He wants me to do words. Wait, he's casting an actor. I'm not an actor." Uh, so I talked to my partner at the time, and she said, "Come on, you're a longtime performer. When you poetry, music, when you get on the stage, when you're playing on a stage, you talk to people. You're really just acting anyway. I mean, that's nobody's ever really real." And I said, "Well, it's pretty much mostly me." He said, "Well," she said, "maybe they need you." Go for it. She was encouraging. So when he sent me the sides, I looked them over. It was a few pages of dialogue, and then I got the call. Then I read the dialogue. I did the dialogue over the phone to him. And then he paused and he said, "If you can be in Shelbyville, Indiana in 2 weeks on Friday, we're shooting dusk to dawn, such and such, check into the hotel there. Your contracts will be waiting for you. You'll have 2 nights of shooting." And my first exposure to film from 1980 to like 2010, in 30 years, was going on to a feature film shoot and being chased around by vampires in a scrapyard for 2 nights down in southern Indiana. So I got back to film that way. Then I directed and shot some music videos and scored a couple of short. A friend of mine, a filmmaker, has done a couple of features and some documentary, but he also horror film group called The Collective that puts out these DVDs of 10-minute films. And I've scored a few of his 10-minute films, done some sound recordist work for those guys, and done some lighting director work, and went back to film school after 30 years after running away. And probably only because playing music for all this time gave me the guts to do it, because essentially I'm the reason I never wanted to be an actor is because it's terrifying to me, and I'm too shy to be an actor. I just can't. Just when I'm hiding behind a guitar, I'm fine. But
It's challenging if you think about it. I mean, it's easy compared to, like, screenplays. Like, I mean, memorizing songs is pretty simple, I would imagine, compared to, especially people that do, plays with lots of dialogue and stuff. I just really respect people that can do that, and people that can, do films with a lot of dialogue that they have to remember. It really, I don't know. I just really respect that, and that's got to be difficult. You got to have the confidence to get in front of the camera in the first place and know it's going to be shown a lot of different places, and at the same time you've got to, like, remember all these lines, and that's pretty
oh,
amazing.
you'll like this. I really, because I don't have a head for that. Actors who've done a lot of stage work have a head for remembering dialogue. They've trained themselves. I really worked to memorize my dialogue because I didn't want to be the guy responsible for slowing down production. Having graduated from film school, I knew what that cost every time an actor screwed up. So I didn't want to be that guy. I got down there, and the first thing the director did was hand me fresh dialogue. He'd thrown out what he sent me. He had rewritten it. So
Oh, that's great.
Here, and then go here and go to makeup. We're shooting some other scenes. We'll call you in an hour later. I'm doing scenes with new dialogue that I just saw. So yeah, no. I see, when I was a kid and did theater, I don't know if any of you guys had this experience, but in school you try it. high school, junior high, whatever, you try it. I did do some in film school. We had to help our friends out in film school, so I would do scenes with them. I would do scenes, um, but to me, being a stage actor, you know how they say when you're giving a speech, imagine the audience naked, so you won't be scared. I think that would just be distracting, but maybe you won't be scared. But
Yeah.
to me, I feel like the audience is looking at me naked. So I feel like I'm the only one in the room uh, naked, and I'm on the stage. So I really admire actors. I think the intensity of what they do mentally and emotionally, um, I really really respect it. I really respect it. There have been a number of really good actors close to me in my life, and I respect everything they do. But long story short, that was my one. Bite March was my one movie, and it broke ground because it was the first horror movie, feature length horror movie, vampire film with gay protagonists and a truck driver who was questioning his sexuality. So it was it was really interesting because after we shot the film and Mark went back to California, he called me and asked. I sent some incidental music, recorded some incidental music for his movie. Um, I had no idea because of the specific nature of the film that it fit into the horror genre. It was tongue in cheek, campy, not serious, but the fact that it had like two well it was about a gay couple, two guys who sort of go on a trip across America to kind of rekindle their romance, and they get picked up by this truck driver. So the fact that it had these twists added to the horror genre caused it to be screened all over the world. First of all, at every LGBTQ festival, all from Europe to all over the place. And I now tell people that I'm the only actor they know that's ever been in a film screened at Cannes Film Festival.
Oh
So
wow, interesting.
bragging points. And then I also say, but please don't watch the film.
Oh, well, let's leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was a great story. I definitely appreciate the music. We got one more person. Last but not least, Frank D'Onofrio. I want to
Hey,
talk to you after the show. It's about 9:14 here in Central Standard Time, and we start at 7, so I should probably wrap it up. But just so the video itself isn't so much time. But like, I really want to feature Frank and maybe some other people. If you ever want to get together with me, we could do more of like an interview thing, and I could
Oh,
put
I'd love to. I'd love to. That would be perfect. There's a
yeah.
lot to say in the story. The story is there's a lot here,
Yeah, and I feel
and
like it's very important. I
you
think it's
know,
very important. I mean, he was the kind of like the pioneer of rock and roll, so that's pretty awesome. Uh,
yeah.
but anyways, Doc, how are you doing tonight?
I'm here. At least I think I am. But then
You
again,
are
that's typical of a poet.
well, right on. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you are uh, like in Star Wars, the Rebel Alliance trooper. You know what I mean? You just stuck around to the very end, and I sincerely appreciate it. So this um, Doc is last but not least. Like point being is he does a lot of really good writings and poetry and a lot of stories. So he's a really interesting fellow.
Uh, Phil mentioned Leonard Cohen, and I saw some time ago a clip of Leonard Cohen during one of his sojourns in Montreal, and he mentioned the motto of the province of Quebec, which is Je me souviens, or I remember. And that keyed into a poem. Je me souviens. I remember hearing a wordless song, a sweet song of life, a deep sacred song of love. Je me souviens, je me souviens. I remember drinking the essence of your soul, the sweet nectar of your mind, the infinity in your eyes. Je me souviens, je me souviens. I remember tasting the stars in the sky, the moon in the night, the sun in the sun's lilting warmth. Je me souviens, je me souviens. I remember us being there together, being inside those feelings, being at the convergence of forever. Je me souviens, je me souviens. And I remember now with feelings of love, with feelings of warmth, with thanks that you were. Je me souviens, je me souviens. And I remember now with feelings of love, with feelings of warmth, with thanks that you were. Je me souviens, je me souviens, je me souviens. And this I just wrote yesterday. Canticle of Forever. Knotted on strings of forever, galaxies sail on eons long voyages, messengers of time in a Tipu universe, filled with pangs of birth, life, and death. They carry knowledge in codes of every when, across seas of dark reprise and silence, through moments of an ancient future, and taste all the colors of space. Filled with troubadour stars, they sing magic of new horizons and sacred dreaming spaces, spiced in aromas of places between. They cruise everywhere and every when to see the before today and beyond tomorrow, on winds between time and place. Then drift in reveries of other worlds, worlds unknown but always known, touching, experiencing the past in memory and thought of forever. And this I wrote this morning. And it's only the beginning of a much longer poem. I know it is. Waking somewhere in between, one foot in the surf of one world and one on the sands of another. Each is real to the me that is there, and each of us part of the other, the same yet not ever the same. I reach for them and they for me, right hand to left and left to right. We touch through the mirror of time. Are we each one another, or ever an other, as divergence may have changed us in shades of environment and time? We speak through reflected transparency in words visible and invisible, and language as infinite as longing. Wisdom makes of us friends, our emotions, our tears, us, refracted in ageless prism of life. Thank you.
That was awesome. That was inspirational. I Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
It was inspirational. I love stuff like that. That's very like abstract, very like uh using universe as space as a metaphor and stuff like and time, space time. All that's really cool. I appreciate that. It reminds me of some of what our host Brian Burchette writes and stuff like that. It's but like I don't know. I just found it very motivational and inspirational, and it makes me want to go write myself. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Some people call my work avant-garde.
Avant-garde. There you go. Yeah, I would say so. That's cool. Wow. I think that's a good wrap up too. I'm kind of glad that I just want to tell everybody, if you like watch this show all the way through, we thank you abundantly. It's we get together, we take time out of our week and our month, and we just try to like, get together and meet minds and put together our literature. Um, I think literature and music is very important. The spoken word or the sung word. It's just these are what humans are thinking. It's a form of art. It's a medium. It's a medium that people create, and there's a kind of like a painting where people can look at it, and perhaps it will alter their course in life into a more meaningful direction, or doing things with more of a sentimental mindset, and not so much just like a get up, go to work, go home, watch television until you get tired, and then you turn it off and you go to bed. And you know, all of you, I really respect y'all, because you don't just like go to work, go home, eat, watch TV until maybe we all do some of that, but I mean, you all create, you all produce, you all make part of life, kind of like, I don't know if everybody believes in like a creator, or but whether or not you believe in a creator, we all came from somewhere in the galaxy or the universe or whatever, and we're kind of like the image of the pattern of the rest of the universe, kind of like on point with what you're kind of talking about. It's a we're all part of like the fabric of the universe, our planet and our solar system and everything. And when we create, we kind of mimic the fact that we were created. And to me, that's like the most priceless thing we can do as a human being, is to mimic creation as being, part of what either was created by purpose or by randomness. Either way, we're carrying that torch into like another direction using our minds, and I just think that's awesome. So
Right. Well said.
thank you. That means a lot coming from you. That's the best I can do. So thanks. Um, okay. Well, uh, I would really like the rest of y'all to like go again and stuff, but we've had such a huge wealth of different writings and songs and stuff like that, and stories, and it's 9:30, so I think I'm gonna
Yeah,
cut it out.
that's fine.
Yeah, but
Getting late here too.
Yep.
We
Yeah.
appreciate you because you help us run this and you work full time, and you and your family, are important. So just remember that. You got to do what you got to do for your
Right.
family.
Oh yeah.
So thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.
Thanks,
Thanks,
David.
I do.
And
One
David,
month-
Good night,
one-
everyone.
Or one
David,
day a
keep-
month with y'all is like worth it. You know what I'm saying? It's wonderful seeing y'all. So
keep writing your songs, David.
All right.
Keep writing your songs.
Phillip. Yeah. You
I
did
have a
good.
question.
You're an
Past
excellent
months and this month will all live on YouTube. I'd like to go back and see what was happening before I got
Yes,
here.
sir. I'm gonna type right now in the wait. Let me get a full message here. I'm trying to get to the whole. Where are we at? I'm trying to find so I can send this to everybody. Let's see here. Okay, save chat.
Oh yeah, and don't be afraid to use the links I posted to connect
Mhm.
with me at any of my Facebook sites or anything like that I posted the links for. There is a Phillip Henry Christopher, and there is a Philadelphia Phil, and in these days you have to have so many of those things you can't keep track of them. But yeah, please do feel free to contact me and stay connected.
Right. Yeah, I'm saving this. I'm saving the whole chat. Chat. 3. Let's see. -29-21. So, oh wait, hang on. Okay. Well, all right then. I don't know. Oh, I see. They want me to go to like a freaking fold. Okay. What's the deal? Okay, I don't know. What is the deal? Okay, anyways, point being is like I saved this chat, so I'll be able to pull it up later, and I'll try to get like your links and put them on the video. And right now I'm going to type, this is where you find this. I originally did an open mic Cookville at the beginning of the COVID-19 and stuff like that, I started an open mic night Cookville, and that's what the channel is called. But the Literature Cafe is like mainly based in Nashville, but I posted on the Open Mic Night Cookville YouTube channel. So I'm gonna type this right here: Open Mic Night